Xiao Yin faintly grinned as he watched the green-faced Yi Chun throw up a mouthful of fresh blood. Xiao Yan's finger gently rubbed a blood-colored storage ring in his hand. This was something that he had snatched from Yi Chun's finger when they had exchanged blows earlier. Since the other party had cursed Xiao Yin and had lost the battle, it was natural that the other party would have to leave something behind. Hand over the storage ring. Yi Chun rubbed away the blood trace on the corner of his mouth. His eyes were scarlet as he stared at Xiao Yin. His fierce manner was just like that of a wild beast. Treat this as a little interest. Xiao Yin laughed softly before speaking in a calm voice. You have already lost this stage match. Take your people and leave. Yi Chun's face was distorted. His eyes were dark and ruthless as he stared at Xiao Yin. The desire to kill surged within his eyes. Clearly, he was unwilling to simply admit defeat. From the way he saw it, the reason he had lost to Xiao Yin was because he had made a mistake in the way he had attacked. If he had been prepared, he would not have ended up defeated in such an ugly fashion. A denseness also surged onto the face of Qin Tian Nan, while Yi Chun's face was green. He had underestimated Xiao Yin. It was unexpected that even Demon Yi from the Profound Sky sect, whose reputation was extremely fierce, would end up being defeated by Xiao Yan's hands. Looking at it this way, Xiao Yin could be considered outstanding even among the younger generation across the Central Plains region. Moreover, no one would forget this young man, who had defeated Yi Chun, also possessed superb alchemist abilities that surpassed many elders within the Pill Tower. Although Xiao Yin was not the only one who had managed to obtain such results in both Do Qi and alchemist skills, he was definitely an extremely rare existence by being able to reach this stage at such a young age. This person must not be allowed to live. Otherwise, he will definitely cause trouble in the future. A dense killing intent flashed across Qin Tiannan's heart. His eyes were rotated as he suddenly stepped forward. With a flash, his body had appeared around 10 feet in front of Xiao Yin. A cold cry exploded within the square like thunder. Uneducated brat. You actually snatched someone else's thing when sparring. Did your teach not teach you the necessary etiquette? Qin Tiannan's large hand penetrated through empty space after his cry sounded. He mercilessly grabbed at Xiao Yan's head. Looking at this situation, Xiao Yan's head would burst apart with a bang, like a watermelon if it was firmly grabbed by him. Qin Tiannan. Qiuling's expression changed as he stood outside of the stone stage. He yelled Qin Tiannan's name in anger. Qin Tiannan acted as though he did not hear the furious cry of Qiuling. At this moment, his desire to kill Xiao Yin had already reached a peak. If he did not personally kill Xiao Yin today, it was likely that he would have difficulty sleeping and eating in peace in the future. Brat, repay my son's life. Qin Tiannan revealed a ferocious face. Just when his palm was about to make contact with Xiao Yin, a cold smile surfaced on Xiao Yan's face. Xiao Yin flicked his finger, and a dark golden figure suddenly appeared in front of him. Clang! Qin Tiannan's hand heavily slammed into the dark golden body. A clear metallic sound appeared. The frightening destructive force on his hand did not cause the golden body to shake even a little. Qin Tiannan's palm fell. Waves of a numbing feeling were suddenly transmitted from his palm, causing his expression to immediately change. He raised his eyes, only to see an expressionless hole of a face. After which, the figure's dark golden fist scattered the air. A punch without any fancy moves smashed toward Qin Tiannan's head. Faced with this bright golden fist, the pores all over Qin Tiannan's body suddenly stood up. His mighty Do Qi gathered on his palm as it hurriedly met with the fist. Bang! A low, deep sound appeared in the air as an invisible wind fluctuation spread out with lightning-like speed. The stone stage, which had turned into rock fragments, burst apart and formed a layer of dust on the ground. The fist and palm crossed each other. One could watch as Qin Tiannan immediately flew backwards. He quickly landed, and his feet took over a dozen heavy steps back. Only then did he raise his head in shock and look at the dark golden puppet in front of Xiao Yin. The waves of numbness being transmitted from his hand caused a monstrous wave to surge in his heart. With his eyesight, he was naturally able to tell that the dark golden human figure was a puppet. However, the strength of this puppet caused his entire body to feel an icy chill. A Do Zun class puppet? Qin Tian felt a dryness surging into his mouth when he thought of this. An ordinary person was unable to reach this stage even after training for all one's life. However, a puppet of this fellow actually possessed such a frightening strength?
Clang clang.
Qin Tian withdrew in a deflated manner. The group of experts from the profound Xian sect immediately drew shiny weapons from their storage rings. Their faces were filled with murderous desire as they stared at Xiao Yin. From their appearance, it seemed that they would charge forward and turn Xiao Yin into mincemeat once Qin Tian gave the order. Swoosh! Two figures slowly appeared beside Xiao Yin while these people drew their weapons. Their ice-cold eyes swept over the square. The vast and mighty dou qi that vaguely spread from them caused these fierce, evil people to withdraw 2 steps in shock. 2 dozuns. The ones who had appeared beside Xiao Yin were naturally the little fairy doctor and Tianhua Zunjia. The two of them had not intervened earlier because they were aware that Xiao Yin could deal with the so-called demon Yi. However, they had not expected Qin Tian to suddenly attack. Qin Tian's face underwent a slight change as he watched the little fairy doctor and Tianhua Zunjia appear. He was naturally able to sense the strengths of the two. They were genuine dozuns. Moreover, the most frightening thing was that the young, beautiful, white-clothed lady vaguely gave him a dangerous feeling when he looked at her. Additionally, the thing that really caused his heart to sink was the sky demon puppet that stood in front of Xiao Yin without moving. After the earlier exchange, Qin Tian clearly understood in his heart that if they were to really fight, just the puppet alone was going to give him a difficult time. This brat is really mysterious. There are so many experts beside him. Even without the protection of the pill tower, these people who have come today wouldn't be able to do anything to them. Qin Tian's mouth twitched a little. After weighing the situation repeatedly, his face became green. He realized that the people he had brought would likely be killed by the other party should a battle really break out. 3 elite dozuns. Even with the great foundation of his profound Xian sect, he was unable to produce a lineup that could compare to it. Faced with this sudden change in situation, Qin Tian ended up feeling a little embarrassed. His group was unable to fight with the other party. What could he do? Ads by Pub Future. Yichen's expression had also changed because of this scene. Although there were very few people among the younger generation who could surpass him, he still had to hold back his arrogance in the face of an expert dozun. The peak of the dozun class and the dozun class were 2 completely different concepts. It was difficult to measure their gap. Currently, 3 elite dozuns had suddenly appeared by Xiao Yan's side. It was likely that Qin Tian's aim in maneuvering such a large number of people was not going to be fulfilled. Any words were useless in front of true strength. If they had been able to take out 10 elite dozuns, there was no need for them to even say anything. They could simply attack and capture Xiao Yan. Unfortunately, the number of dozuns they currently had not only was not 10, but was even a little less compared to Xiao Yan's side. How are they going to fight? Sect Leader Qin, you have made enough of a fuss today. If this continues, it is likely that even the 3 association heads will not be able to overlook this matter. Qiuling's expression was dark and solemn. Qin Tian had come to create trouble at the entrance of the pill tower. It would not benefit the pill tower if word of this spread. However, it was fortunate that Xiao Yin was full of abilities. Not only did he successfully withstand this calamity, but he had even violently slapped the profound Xian sect. Qin Tian's expression slightly changed upon hearing Qiuling's words. The eyes of Yi Chen became cold as he spoke in a dense, chilly voice. Could it be that Elder Qiu thinks that it is so easy to take the things of my profound sky sect? This is called the spoils of a fight. Xiao Yin smiled and corrected. His smiling face caused Yi Chen's eyes to appear as though they were about to spit out flames. Brat, you better not use the glib of tongue on the old me. Qin Tian coldly laughed. However, before he could finish speaking, an ice-cold voice suddenly resounded over the entire square. Sect Leader Qin, it is time that this farce ends today. If you continue with your trouble, you should not blame the pill tower for not giving you face. Moreover, Yi Chen, if you represent the profound sky sect as enemies of the pill tower, you can return immediately. I want to see just how Tian Mingzi will reply to you. The space in front of Xiao Yin slowly distorted when that icy cold voice sounded. Immediately Xian Yi slowly walked out of the distortion. Her eyes contained a fierceness. There was an incredible amount of prestige in her stare. Xiao Ling by the side hurriedly bowed and greeted Xian Yi when he saw her appearing at this moment. The faces of Chen Tiannan and Yi Chun drastically changed. Xian Yi's status and reputation far surpassed theirs. Even if the chief of the profound sky sect, Tian Mingzi, were here, it was likely that he would have to be polite to her. In an instant, even someone as proud as Yi Chan felt perspiration pouring down like rain. He might have spoken in a mighty manner earlier, but he also understood that the profound sky sect would definitely not offend the pill tower over Xiao Yin. Since association head Xian Yi has stepped forward, the matter today shall end here for now. However, if the old me discovers the truth, I will definitely not just leave the matter as it is. The mouth of Chen Tiannan trembled for a moment. Finally, he clenched his teeth and threw out some ruthless but superficial words. He then swung his sleeve and directed his group to leave in a dispirited manner. He did not expect even a giant head of the pill tower to personally step forward because of a Xiao Yin. Watching Chen Tiannan withdraw, Yi Chun could only grit his teeth unwillingly. His eyes were dark and dense as he glanced at Xiao Yin, after which he swung his sleeves and left. His back was accompanied by a miserable appearance. Xiao Yin involuntarily shook his head as he watched these people leave in a dispirited manner. He tossed the blood-red storage ring in his hand and spoke with a faint smile. A group of people who only knows how to bully others by using another's strength. Why did you show yourself in the face of such matters? Qiu Ling would naturally have helped you avoid them. Xian Yi turned around and involuntarily reprimanded Xiao Yin. The other party even set up a battle stage and issued a challenge. Could I shrink back? Xiao Yin laughed. Forget it. I'm too lazy to argue with you. Your character is the same as that old fellow. Xian Yi helplessly shook her head. She turned around and walked to the pill tower. When passing by Xiao Yin, a soft voice was transmitted into his ear. Come in. We have obtained information related to the place where Yao Chen is imprisoned. The smile on Xiao Yan's face slowly disappeared when he heard her words. Replacing it was a stern, densely cold face. Human figures were scattered around in some seats within a spacious hall. The atmosphere within the hall was quite solemn. Ever since Xiao Yan had walked into the large hall, he had been staring intently at Xin Kongzi trio. Even his breathing had become a little hurried because of his excitement. It had been around 5 or 6 years since Yao Lao had been captured back then until now. Although Yao Lao's life had not been at risk during these 5 or 6 years, the suffering he had endured was definitely unbelievable. All of Xiao Yan's abilities had come about because Yao Lao paved the way for him. It was due to Yao Lao that Xiao Yan had been able to reach such a height. Hence, as long as it was something related to Yao Lao, Xiao Yan's emotions would fluctuate a little. Little fellow, do not allow your mind to become chaotic. Rescuing Yao Lao is not a simple matter. If anything wrong occurs midway, it would be equivalent to delivering a goat to the mouth of a tiger. Xin Kongzi involuntarily shook his head and spoke when he saw Xiao Yan's eyes. Xiao Yan gently nodded upon hearing Xin Kongzi's scolding words. Xiao Yan took a couple of deep breaths and suppressed his fluctuating mind. His eyes once again recovered their calmness. He softly asked, why was the information regarding this collected so quickly? It cannot be considered quick. If one wanted to really talk about it, we have collected this information for nearly a year in order to obtain this news. However, we have only managed to confirm it now. Xin Kongzi smiled as he answered. Where has the Hall of Souls transferred teacher? Xiao Yan's eyes did not blink as he stared at Xin Kongzi and swiftly asked. Xin Kongzi smiled. He took out a map scroll from his storage ring before spreading it apart on the table. His finger pointed to the northwestern part of the Central Plains and said, there are quite a number of secretive branch halls within the Central Plains of the Hall of Souls. An ordinary person would not be able to discover them. There is a Death Soul mountain range in the northwestern region. That place hides a branch hall of the Hall of Souls. Has teacher been transferred to this Death Soul mountain range's branch hall? Xiao Yan's eyes flickered as he asked. Yes. Xin Kongzi slightly nodded and said, This Death Soul mountain range can be considered a dangerous place within the Central Plains. For some unknown reason, the cold chi in that place is extremely dense. Cold fog covers the sun. If one were to randomly barge in, one would end up lost within it. Moreover, there are quite a number of powerful and unusually bloodthirsty magical beasts within the mountain range. It is extremely troublesome to deal with them. Probably the reason why the Hall of Souls established a branch hall is because the concealment of this place had caught its eye. Death Soul Mountain Range. Xiao softly muttered this name in his mouth. Since he was aware of the location where Yao Lao was being imprisoned, he would definitely make an attempt without hesitation even if he had to enter an extremely treacherous place. How many experts are there in that Hall of Souls branch hall? How many Dozuns are there? The little fairy doctor by the side softly posed the most important question. Xiao would become a little excited when he met with anything related to Yao Lao. At this moment, she could only pay more attention to the situation. Xiao also became clear-headed after hearing the little fairy doctor's question. He hurriedly nodded. This was the most important question. If they were unable to clearly probe the other party's defensive strength, randomly barging in would only deliver themselves to be captured. The Hall of Souls really values Yao Chun. The defensive strength watching him is definitely not too weak. Based on the information we have obtained, there is likely 5 elite Dozuns guarding the Death Soul mountain range. Even Xin Kongzi's expression had become a little more serious when he spoke until this point. 5 Dozuns. This lineup was extremely powerful even when placed within the Central Plains. It belonged to the level where all they needed to do was stomp their feet, and many top-tier factions would be frightened to the point of peeing their pants. 5 Dozuns. Xiao expression changed slightly upon hearing this. His mouth involuntarily inhaled a gentle breath of cool air. This strength was really a little too great. The Hall of Souls had dispatched 5 Dozuns just to guard a branch hall. This lineup was sufficient to wash a top-tier faction in blood. The little fairy doctor and Tian Hua Zunjia also had faces that were a lot more grave. Clearly, they were shaken by the strength of this Hall of Souls. Xiao calculated that there were, at the very most, 3 Dozuns beside him if he included the Sky Demon puppet. Currently, he was also able to hold back an elite Dozun. However, if he were to face 2 of them, it was likely that he could only turn around and flee. Now, we can only wait for Feng Zunjia to come. If we add him, we should close to enough enormous people to give it a try. Xiao mused in his heart. Are these all the Dozuns in that branch hall? The little fairy doctor fell silent for a moment before asking again. Based on the information we got our hands on, there should only be 5 Dozuns. However, the branch hall definitely still has some Hall of Souls protectors. Their combined fighting strength would also be quite strong, Xin Kongzi said. Those protectors cannot be considered much trouble. However, all of you need to beware of meeting a Tianzuan. Xiani by the side spoke with a grave face. Tianzuan? Xiao group was startled when they heard this foreign name. The Hall of Souls protectors are divided into the Sky, Earth, and Man category. Although the Honorable Elders do not have such a strict division, they are similarly divided according to rank. Tianzuan are the strongest experts among the Honorable Elder ranking. As for their strength, the only thing you need to know is that even Old Mugu is not qualified to be a Tianzuan in the Hall of Souls. Xiani explained in a deep voice. Xiao narrowed his eyes. Old Mugu's strength should be around that of a 3-star Dozun. Even he did not possess the qualification to be a Tianzuan. Would it not be the case that these Tianzans of the Hall of Souls were all at least 5-star Dozuns? Even with Xiao calmness, his brows were involuntarily knit when he thought of this. There was vast difference between every level within the Dozun class. Many Dozuns had spent dozens of years without being able to raise their strength by 1 star. From this, one could tell just what kind of terrifying gap was present between every star within the Dozun class. 5-star Dozuns. It was likely that even the combined strength of Little Fairy Doctor and the Sky Demon Puppet would be able to fight them, but then the originally few Dozuns on Xiao side would be even more limited. This Hall of Souls is indeed terrifying. Xiao exhaled a deep breath of air. Even though he really did not wish to admit it, he still involuntarily emitted a sigh at this moment. Even across the entire continent, it was likely hardly anyone could fight against such a terrifying strength with the exception of those factions that had originated since ancient times like the Gu clan. There is no need to worry. Tianzins have extremely high positions within the Hall of Souls. They will usually not easily reveal themselves. 5 Dozuns guarding Yaochan. This is already an extremely high standard. If another Tianzuan is added, it would cause one to feel incredulous. Xian Kongzi waved his hand and spoke when he saw Xiao Yan's solemn expression. Xiao Yan slightly nodded. At this moment, he could only think in this manner. Since the status of these fellows were so high, it was unlikely for them to stay in a branch hall for no reason. After all, an expert should have the eccentricness of an expert. This is the information that we have obtained. The Pill region is not far from the Death Soul mountain range. It should be enough to reach there in 5 days or so. Xian Kongzi slowly spoke, after which he took out a goat skin scroll and handed it to Xiao Yan. This is the map of the interior of the Death Soul mountain range. The branch hall of the Hall of Souls is located in the middle of the mountain range. Xiao Yan received the map and opened it, after which he carefully studied the map. The map was extremely detailed. Although the cold fog within the mountain range was extremely dense, relying on such a precise map to successfully enter the range would not be too difficult. Thank you very much, old Xian. Xiao Yan stored the map in his storage ring, cupped his hands together, and thanked Xian Kongzi. This is merely a trivial matter. Ugh, however, this is all we can help you with. All of you will have to rely on yourselves for the final action. Xian Kongzi waved his hand and sighed. Xiao Yan smiled and said, if the Pill Tower had not helped us gather information, we do not know just when it would have been until we had found the location where Teacher is imprisoned. Therefore, this is not a trivial matter. Xian Kongzi bitterly smiled and nodded. He asked, when are all of you preparing to act? Xiao Yan mused for a moment before replying, this operation must be well prepared. Therefore, we must wait until Feng Zunjia hurries over. Oh? Haha, that old fellow huh? Xian Kongzi involuntarily laughed when he heard Feng Zunjia being mentioned. He said, that old fellow has an extremely good relationship with Yaochan. Finding him will indeed be of great help. Moreover, he is extremely experienced. With him following all of you, we will definitely feel more reassured. Xiao Yan smiled and nodded. Feng Zunjia could be considered a renowned expert across the Central Plains region. He had frequently come into contact with the Hall of Souls during the years he had searched for traces of Yao Lao. With him joining this operation, they would be able to understand a little more about the Hall of Souls. He would also boost their confidence in finally rescuing Yao Lao. Even though this is the case, let's wait for news from the old fellow. With his speed, it should be possible for him to reach the Pill region in half a month's time. Xian Kongzi fondled his beard and laughed. Xiao Yan slightly smiled slightly. Half a month? During this half a month, he needed to try his best to raise the strength of their group. It was time to refine the fungus green pill for Tianhua Zunjia. If the strength of the people on his side was a little stronger, the chances of them succeeding would also increase. However, no matter how much more his conviction grew, this trip would be the most dangerous and important operation that Xiao Yan has ever undertaken. Therefore, he needed to do his best. He must not allow even the slightest reason to cause any mistake to occur during this operation. After chatting a little with Xian Kongzi and the others about areas they should take note of relating to the Hall of Souls and the Death Soul mountain range, Xiao Yan ceased remaining any longer. He directed the little fairy doctor and the rest as they cupped their hands together and bade the others goodbye, after which they hurriedly left. They were currently pressed for time, and they could not afford to squander it. Xian Kongzi and the two others exchanged looks with each other after watching Xiao Yan's group's backs leave through the door. They also softly sighed. Hopefully this trip of theirs will be smooth. It has been many years since anyone has witnessed someone snatch a person from the hands of the Hall of Souls. I wonder if they will succeed this time around? Xiao Yan was seated cross-legged on the bed within his room. His finger was rubbing a blood-red storage ring in his hand. It was the ring he had forcefully snatched from Yi Chen's hand. This fellow possessed a high position within the Profound Sky sect. It was likely that the things within the ring would not be too lousy. This is interest. Xiao Yan softly laughed. A thought passed through his mind, and a trace of spiritual strength spread from between his brows. After which, it invaded the blood-red storage ring. However, the spiritual strength had just made contact with the ring when it was repelled by a force. A spiritual imprint has been placed on it, huh? Xiao Yin raised his eyebrows when his spiritual strength was repelled. The strength of that Yi-chan was quite great. However, if they were to compare his strength in terms of spiritual strength, it was likely that even Tin Yi-chan were unable to surpass Xiao Yin. This kind of spiritual imprint appeared to be without any defensive properties from Xiao Yan's point of view. Xiao Yan's finger gently rubbed over the blood-red storage ring. A vast and mighty strength surged out like floodwaters. One could hear a slight cracking sound as the spiritual imprint within the storage ring was forcefully removed by Xiao Yan. After easily removing the spiritual imprint on the storage ring, Xiao Yan's spiritual strength finally entered it without any obstacles. He briefly searched it, and a blood-red scroll appeared in his hand with a flash. Blood Evil Skill. Xiao Yan swept his eyes over the scroll, after which they paused on the 3 blood-red words at the top. A wave of a dense bloody scent immediately poured out of it. Xiao Yan carefully opened the scroll. He briefly glanced at the introduction to this qi method within the scroll, and his brows were involuntarily knit. A moment later, he softly said, "It is indeed bloody. This kind of qi method is far too evil and also far too cruel. Swallowing the flesh and blood of others to absorb the other party's do qi. This kind of tactic is really vicious." This so-called blood evil skill could be considered a top-level qi method even within the Profound Sky sect. This was something that could be observed from how Yi Chen managed to rely on it to reach the peak of the Do Zone class when he was only around 30 years old. Although there were other reasons like his outstanding talent, most of it was due to the unusual process of this blood evil skill. However, this kind of tactic that relies on absorbing the strength of others to become stronger is not considered an excellent one. If one absorbs too much do qi, one's own do qi will have difficulty becoming pure. After reaching a certain level, one would have difficulty advancing even an inch forward. Unless one scatters one's power and retrains, one would even gradually suffer a backlash from the impure do qi. After briefly reading this so-called blood evil skill, Xiao Yin also managed to find some of the drawbacks of this qi method. This thing would allow one to swiftly grow strong, but the sequelae was really too great. Moreover, the process was also extremely cruel and bloody. Unless it was someone who was naturally cold and indifferent, one would not be able to practice this kind of qi method. Profound Sky sect. What an evil sect. Xiao Yin shook his head and randomly stored this blood evil skill into his storage ring. No matter how one put it, this could barely be considered a D-class high-level qi method. If he took it out to be auctioned in the future, he would definitely be able to exchange it for some extremely valuable items. After Xiao Yin took the blood evil skill, he searched for a while, but he did not find anything else that could interest him. Just when he planned on giving up, his sweeping spiritual strength suddenly stopped in a certain part of the storage ring. There was an inconspicuous, gray scroll. Xiao Yin could vaguely sense a faint killing intent seeping out of the scroll. This is... Xiao Yin narrowed his eyes. This kind of killing aura was something that he was familiar with. After recalling this familiarity, he finally discovered that it seemed to be powerful do skill that Yi Chen had used near the end of their match. It contained a murderous aura that seemed to snatch the mind of another. Xiao Yin clenched his hand. A gray-colored scroll appeared in it. He flicked his finger and pulled it open. A couple of ordinary words, permeated with killing intent, appeared in his sight. Heaven Offering Demon Hand. Xiao Yin softly mumbled those words. A glint flashed across his eyes at the same time. This thing was indeed the final attack that Yi Chen had displayed earlier. When they had fought earlier, Xiao Yin had personally experienced the strength of this so-called Heaven Offering Demon Hand. That sharp killing intent was indeed extremely strong. Fortunately, Yi Chen had clearly yet to master it to its peak. His killing aura had been significantly diluted, perhaps because the bloody qi in his body was overly dense. This Heaven Offering Demon Hand required an unhesitating desire to kill. Such a killing desire was born from one's thoughts. It was not something that could be supplemented by relying on blood qi. This thing could be considered one of the ultimate skills of the profound sky sect. Its strength is definitely beyond what Yi Chun had displayed. That fellow is far too arrogant. This caused him to be unable to understand the true meaning of the heaven offering demon hand. Xiao Yin carefully studied this scroll before exhaling a deep breath and speaking with some interest. Based on Xiao Yan's guess, if this heaven offering demon hand were to be fully unleashed, its might would likely only be able surpassed if one learned the fifth seal of the God Seal skill. This thing was indeed unique for it to become an ultimate skill within the profound sky sect. Xiao Yan's hand gently rubbed the scroll. The smile on his face became more dense. It was unexpected that Yi Chun would deliver such a treasure this time around. If Xiao Yan was able to learn this heaven offering demon hand, his fighting strength would definitely rise. He would also possess an additional fighting technique when battling with others in the future. Moreover, they would begin their operation to rescue Yao Lao very soon. By having this heaven offering demon hand delivered to him, it must be said that Yi Chun was just like a timely downpour. Due to the need to wait for the arrival of Feng Zunjia, Xiao Yan's group still had time to prepare. Though, such a dangerous operation would appear rushed no matter how long one had to prepare. Hence, Xiao Yan had once again chosen to undertake a retreat after having obtained the information from the three great heads. During this retreat, Xiao Yan not only needed to help Tianhua Zunjia refine the fungus green pill before Feng Zunjia arrived, but he would also need to find some time to familiarize and practice the heaven offering demon hand. One additional skill would mean an additional net of safety. Similarly, it would also mean that his confidence to succeed would increase. Regardless of whether this would be insignificant or not, it would be better prepare more in order to rescue Yao Lao. The little fairy doctor and the others were helpless in the face of Xiao Yan's somewhat crazy retreat. After having followed Xiao Yan around for so many years, she was aware of just how much effort Xiao Yan had put in to rescue his teacher. Now that everything was falling into place, he would naturally not dare to relax even a little. Being influenced by Xiao Yan, the little fairy doctor and Tianhua Zunjia did not leave during this period of time. They understood the importance of this operation to Xiao Yan. Therefore, they tried to increase their strength a little in order to boost their likelihood of success. The insane training of these people caused Xin Kongzi and the rest to feel a little helpless. However, they could empathize with them. Hence, they issued the order not to disturb Xiao Yan's group. Moreover, they had even dispatched some female servants there. If Xiao Yan lacked something during his pill refinement, the pill tower would swiftly deliver it to him. Half a year quietly passed while Xiao Yan undertook a retreat where he forgot to eat or sleep. During this half a month, the pill tower was faced with a commotion. This commotion was due to a thundercloud suddenly appearing in the sky above the pill tower. Moreover, there were two faint colors in the thundercloud. The thundercloud was surprisingly a two-colored pill lightning. From the looks of it, it was obvious that some alchemist guru within the pill tower had refined a Tier 8 medicinal pill. When they felt surprised at the pill lightning lingering in the sky, a golden light was suddenly emitted from the pill tower. After which, the light floated in the sky and received the violent strike from the two-colored pill lightning in front of a countless number of speechless people. Next, the light landed without being hurt and disappeared in a flash. The people from the pill tower were familiar with this scene. When the golden-colored figure appeared, all of them understood Nu was refining a Tier 8 medicinal pill, the champion of this pill gathering, Xiao Yan. Admiration filled quite a number of alchemists when they figured out who was refining this pill. Tier 8 medicinal pills were too far for them to reach. However, it appeared as though those pills were readily available to the hands of Xiao Yan, who appeared even younger than them. This kind of comparison caused them to feel embarrassed. One should really not compare two different people. 2 days after the pill lightning ended, Xiao Yan finally left his half-a-month-long retreat. However, his disheveled appearance appeared quite miserable. Although Xiao Yan looked miserable, it did not hinder the excitement on his face. After failing 3 times, he had finally successfully refined the fungus green pill. Tianhua Zunjia, who had been guarding Xiao Yan's room outside, revealed a stunned expression when he saw Xiao Yan's miserable appearance. However, when Xiao Yan tossed him a deep green, round medicinal pill with a strong spiritual aura, he was instantly excited. Without saying anything unnecessary, He grabbed the medicinal pill and entered another chamber. Watching how quickly he left, Xiao Yin involuntarily laughed. During this retreat, he had not only managed to successfully refine the fungus green pill, he had also gained a basic understanding of the heaven-offering demon hand. On the whole, he had acquired a lot. Xiao Yin finally rested after having left his retreat and having prepared everything he needed to. He calmly recuperated for 2 days before his condition returned to its peak. The only thing that he needed to do was to wait Feng Zunjia to arrive, after which they would leave and rescue Yao Lao. Xiao Yin's wait did not last very long. On the 5th day after he had left his retreat, Xiao Yin was practicing the heaven-offering demon hand, but he suddenly stood up from his chair. He sensed a familiar, mighty aura appearing within his area of perception at this moment. Feng Zunjia had arrived. The top level of the pill tower consisted of an extremely spacious and grand hall. Normally, the great heads of the pill tower would only receive guests here when they were VIPs. At this moment, there were some figures randomly seated within this large hall that had been vacated for a long time. A female servant was respectfully pouring tea. "Cuckoo, Feng Zunjia, it has been many years since we have last seen each other. You still have that free and easy manner." Xin Kongzi in the leader's seat looked at a green-clothed, old man with a smile on his face and laughed. The green-clothed, old man was naturally Feng Zunjia, who had traveled non-stop from the Falling Star Pavilion after having received Xiao Yan's message. He merely shook his head and laughed after hearing Xin Kongzi's words. "How can I be as comfortable as you? A great head? My Falling Star Pavilion is merely a small character when compared to the Pill Tower." There was a somewhat old-fashioned man was seated beside Feng Zunjia. His body was rigid. It was as straight as a spear, giving one a kind of sharp feeling. It was as though the one seated was not a person, but a sword that contained a sharp aura. "Cuckoo, the old me has not left the pill region for a long time. May I know who this friend is?" Xin Kongzi's eyes slid to the old-fashioned man as he asked with a smile. "I have long since forgotten my old name. Subsequently, I have created a name for myself, Taijian, Metal Sword." This old-fashioned man was polite to Xin Kongzi. He cupped his hands together, and his face revealed a somewhat ugly smile. "Taijian? Could it be Tianjian Zunjia, who washed the Jade Sword Gate in blood 5 years ago?" Surprise immediately flashed over Xin Kongzi's face as he asked. The face of the old man, Taijian, moved a little before nodding. Clearly, he did not wish to linger on this topic for long. This old fellow's character is just like this. The enmity between him and the Jade Sword sect is too deep. It is difficult to explain everything in a short time. Feng Zunjia laughed and suddenly swept his eyes over the large hall. He asked, "Where is Xiao Yin? That little fellow has summoned me here. Don't tell me that he is not even going to show himself?" "Cuckoo, what is old Feng saying? How can this member of the younger generation fool an elder like you?" A soft laugh was transmitted from outside of the large hall when Feng Zunjia's voice had just sounded. Immediately, a couple of figures pushed open the door and slowly walked in. Xiao Yan's eyes focused on Feng Zunjia inside the moment he entered the large hall. He immediately sighed in relief. Feng Zunjia was absolutely necessary for this operation. Therefore, Xiao Yan felt reassured after having personally seen Feng Zunjia in the hall. 9-star dozone? Feng Zunjia swept his eyes over Xiao Yan. The teacup in his hand slightly trembled as he exclaimed in surprise. He clearly remembered that Xiao Yan had only just broken through to the dozone class when they parted ways. How could Xiao Yan's strength soar to the 9th stars in a little over a year? The face of the stern-looking Taijian Zunjia by Feng Zunjia's side twitched a little. Some shock flashed across his calm eyes. Feng Zunjia had told him in detail about the matters related to Xiao Yan. From the way Feng Zunjia had spoken, it was obvious that he was extremely pleased with Yao Chen's disciple. Initially, Taijian Zunjia had not been so sure about Yao Chen's disciple. However, now that he had looked over Xiao Yan personally, he finally sensed the hidden extraordinariness under this young face. "Cuckoo, I was merely lucky." Xiao Yan laughed as he walked into the large hall. The little fairy doctor, Tian Hua Zunjia, and the lazy-looking Zi Yin followed behind him. This girl was extremely dissatisfied that Xiao Yan had brought her to meet these old people. Was it not better to allow her to sleep a little longer? Feng Zunjia smiled. His eyes shifted before solidifying on the little fairy doctor and Tianhua Zunjia without moving. Taijian Zunjia by the side also revealed a grave expression on his old-fashioned face. His eyes were staring intently at those two. Being an elite Dozun, he was able to sense that this elderly person and woman seemed to possess a strength that was a little stronger than him. Who are these two? Feng Zunjia blinked his eyes. From the way he saw it, these two people seemed to have a deep relationship with Xiao Yan. Moreover, the thing that caused him to pay more attention was the strength of the little fairy doctor and Tianhua Zunjia. From his senses, these two people had both reached the level of a 3-star Dozun. They are all my friends and will also be helpers during this operation. This is little fairy doctor, and this is Tianhua Zunjia, Xiao Yan smiled and replied. Even with Feng Zunjia's calmness, his heart involuntarily shook a little when he heard Xiao Yan's introduction. He had not seen Xiao Yan for slightly over a year, yet his strength had not only soared to the 9th star, but two powerful friends with the strength of 3-star Dozuns had appeared beside him. This rapid growth really left one speechless. Ugh, he is indeed worthy of being a disciple who caught the eye of that old fellow. One really cannot judge him using common sense. Feng Zunjia bitterly laughed in his heart. Over a year ago, Xiao Yan was merely a young fellow who had just entered the Central Plains. However, now he had already managed to make a name for himself within the Central Plains. News of that earth-shaking competition during the pill gathering had already spread across the entire Central Plains region. Bases on Feng Zunjia's guess, it was likely that the expressions of the Wind Lightning Pavilion would be quite interesting after hearing the news. A Tier 8 alchemist guru was not someone one could offend. This is Taijian Zunjia. He is also a helper that I have found. Ugh, some of our friends in the past withdrew after hearing that we are planning to oppose the Hall of Souls. I am also unable to use any force. These people have their own factions behind them. They are afraid they might anger the Hall of Souls, and that they would retaliate by washing their factions in blood. Feng Zunjia sighed. After which, he pointed at Taijian Zunjia by his side and said, "This Taijian Zunjia is alone and does not have any relations." Back then, he also owed a great favor to Yao Chan. Otherwise, he would not have been able to avenge his blood feud. He had taken the initiative to follow me when he heard that I was going to rescue Yao Chan. Xiao Yan quietly nodded when he heard this. It seemed that Feng Zunjia had been quite active during this period of time. However, the Hall of Souls was too strong. Even Dozun class experts would not dare to offend them. Nevertheless, Xiao Yan's heart felt some admiration for this Taijian Zunjia since he was able to step forward and lend his hand. Making a perfect situation more perfect might be unfortunate, but delivering help when it was needed was truly considered a treasure. Xiao Yan shall represent teacher while thanking Taijian Zunjia for his righteousness. Xiao Yan's expression was grave as he faced Taijian Zunjia, cupped his hands together, and thanked him. The reason I managed to have my revenge was because of Yao Chen's aid. Now that I have taken my revenge, I do not have anything left to be worried about. As long as that old fellow can escape and allow me to return this big favor, barging into the Hall of Souls is nothing. I also wish to meet those fellows who are neither ghosts nor humans. Taijian Zunjia's voice was somewhat hoarse as he spoke. Xiao Yan was silent when he heard the tone of this person, which appeared as though he had already tossed aside everything. The kind of people who could randomly toss themselves aside was the most terrifying. Fortunately, this person was standing on their side during this operation. Xian Kongzi has already informed us about the news relating to Yao Chen. I have been finding helpers during this period of time, and did not notice that the Hall of Souls had already shifted Yao Chen's prison. Otherwise, we might have ended up alerting them if we charged to Ming City. Feng Zunjia fondled his beard and softly commented. However, I did not expect them to transfer him to the Death Soul mountain range. The terrain there is complicated since the cold fog is so dense. If they made a mistake and let someone flee into the deep mountains covered in cold fog, it is likely that even the Hall of Souls would have difficulty finding him. It looks like they are worried that Yao Chun will be rescued by someone. Xiao Yan slightly nodded. He said, "We do not have sufficient time. Moreover, we do not know if the Hall of Souls will receive some news and quietly transfer teacher away. If that happens, all of our effort will be wasted. Ugh, we must indeed quickly resolve such a matter. Otherwise things may change if more time elapses. Feng Zunxi nodded in agreement, after which he looked to Xiao Yin and asked, "When do you plan to leave?" "We'll leave tomorrow," Xiao Yin replied in a deep voice. Currently, all the helpers had been gathered. Adding Feng Zunjia and Tai Jian Zunjia, their group already possessed 5 dozuns. Adding Xiao Yan's explosive fighting strength, they would be able to fight against 6 dozuns. This lineup was already quite strong within the Central Plains. As long as no unexpected changes occurred, Xiao Yin felt a 70% confidence that he would be able to rescue Yao Lao from the hands of the Hall of Souls. Feng Zunjia was slightly startled when he heard Xiao Yan's departure time, after which he slowly nodded. He was similarly aware that this kind of thing should not be delayed for too long. Although leaving tomorrow might appear a little rushed, speed was important in a battle. They could catch the Hall of Souls off guard, snatch the person, and swiftly leave. By the time the experts from the Hall of Souls hurried over, they would only be able to stare at the situation. In that case, we will do as you say and leave tomorrow. Xin Kongzi was also startled as he looked at Xiao Yin and Feng Zunjia, who had swiftly decided the time they would act. He helplessly nodded as he stood up and said, "Since all of you have already decided, the old me shall wish all of you a successful operation. We'll receive old Xin's auspicious words." Xiao Yin laughed. A stern glint suddenly surged into his dark black eyes. He had worked so hard for so many years for this day. Now, it was finally time for him to act. "Teacher, wait for disciple. This time around, I will definitely rescue you from the hands of the Hall of Souls." When the first ray of sunlight cut through the darkness and landed on the ground the next day, a couple of figures quietly rushed out of the pill tower without attracting anyone's attention. They disappeared into the sky within a couple of flashes. Wind sounded on the top of a mountain outside of Holy Pill City. A couple of figures appeared from empty space before landing on the mountain peak. "Let's go." Xiao Yin counted them. His expression was instantly covered with stern seriousness. With a low cry, his body was the first to turn into a blurry black line that shot into the distant sky in a lightning-like fashion. After which, Feng Zunjia, the little fairy doctor, and the rest closely followed. The rescue mission had finally begun at this moment.